I hated them more than anyone or anything in my entire life. I hated them. Nurses and doctors are supposed to help you. They're supposed to be there for you, not enjoying some twisted game with someone that couldn't defend themselves. And even though I couldn't move and I couldn't speak and there was no way of me communicating, I hoped that they could feel it coming straight out of my eyes when I looked at them, because I hated them. I wanted so badly to be able to communicate it to my mum, to Amy. But what they were seeing, these people, and how they behaved while they were there was completely different. The reality that I was having to face whenever they left, the cruelty, the sadistic games that they would play. And as the light outside the window began to dim, I could feel it starting to change, the expectation that they were going to do to me what they had been doing to me for so many days beforehand. Amy, my mum, said they would have to leave soon. And in that moment, I hated them too. How could they not see it? How could they not know? How could they be so naive that they would leave me here with these people? Oh, it was fine, you see. They'd explained to me that I'd been in a coma. They'd explained to me that I had died several times and there had been operations on my heart. They'd explained to me that I couldn't speak because there was a tube in my throat, and they'd explained to me that I couldn't move and that everything was going to be okay. What they couldn't explain to me was, even though they knew that all of these drugs were messing with my mind and creating delusions, causing me to have hallucinations and live out entire scenarios that weren't real, even though they'd explained that to me, they couldn't explain to me how people who knew that would behave the way that they were. If they knew that there was me and other people in this area who were under the influence of drugs that could hallucinate and have delusions, why would they have decorations on the wall of skeletons? Why would they have artwork and motifs on the wall with blood dripping down off of it? Why would they have weird twisted creatures made out of all these synthetic materials hanging from the ceilings and entwined into everything? Why would they be so cruel? Why wouldn't they understand that that would be a bad idea for someone in my situation? But they didn't. No one did. But I understood. I understood it was because they were cruel, you see, because they wanted to torture me. I didn't know whether they were doing this or whether it was something else, but it was then, just before they were leaving, that I noticed the voices were beginning again. That incessant chatter in my ear, coming out of the machine. They're gonna get you, they're gonna come and get you, hey. Gonna go, they're gonna go. I knew they could hear it. I knew they could. I knew my mum could hear it. I knew Amy could hear it. Everyone could hear it, but they pretended like they couldn't. Oh, you're having a delusion. You're having a delusion. I couldn't say a word back. I just looked at them. You know. And they could read my thoughts. They knew I knew. But no matter how much I felt negative towards my mum and towards Amy, the moment when they stroked my hand and kissed my head and told me that they were going to leave was the worst moment of all. Because they might have been part of it, they might have been playing along. They might even have just been ridiculously naive. They were my protection. They would save me. And the minute that they left, the games began. They started to put up all the decorations. You see, they were going to have a Halloween party that night. For more of the goblins, more of the demons, more of the blood everywhere. Laughing, joking, knowing that they could do whatever they wanted to now because I was paralysed. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say anything. I had no ability to communicate with anyone. They could just lock me away in this little room and then just sit out there so I could see them through the windows, drinking, eating, having a great time. So drunk most of them could barely stand. Laughing and joking, each one commenting on how horrific the other looked in their costumes, how great it was, what a laugh it was. And laughing because they knew that if anyone found out they were drunk, they would just be able to use some sort of thing to make themselves sober. They knew, they had it, they knew this. It was an open secret amongst nurses and doctors. They just get a drip, they put it in their arms, it cleaned their blood. They were sober, no one knew. They could do what they wanted. And then the main game began. The moment they'd all been waiting for. It was my turn. So they grabbed my bed, grinning and laughing, and they wheeled me out of the room. They were saying things I couldn't really understand, like a little language that they'd all got together. They took me into a lift. The doors closed, and I could feel we were going down, 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 even further than I could possibly have imagined. Until eventually, I found myself in this strange room. And there was a window, and through it I could see a nurse, and she was telling me, "Don't be afraid, it's fine, it's okay." Don't be afraid, it's okay. It didn't take me very long to realise what was happening. They'd basically put me in a giant microwave, and I wasn't the first. Oh no, no, I wasn't the first. Many a come before me. Many a come before me this evening. This was their game. They loved it. You see, they would put you in here and they would press the button and they'd see how long can you live? How long can you last? And I knew this because the walls dripped with blood. There were bits of skin and bone everywhere. It was my turn. But I knew something. I don't know how I knew, I just knew. If I don't go to sleep, if I don't close my eyes, I'll live. I'll live and I'll show 'em. It's okay. It's all right, Dan. Just relax. Honestly, you can just relax. You don't need to fight. It's okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. There were the noises and everything was going on. But I did it. The doors opened and I did it. Oh, that made them so angry. How angry they were that I'd seen through their game and that I had lived. So, they'd take me back now, right? Everything would be fine. Of course not. Of course not. I've just cleared level 1. No. Now I get to be part of the special game that so few of us manage to see. So they started to wheel me down the corridor and out through some doors, and I realised I was in like the underground. An old train network that must have run underneath of the hospital, and it was so dark and cold and it stank. And I could see bits and pieces of creatures and animals and probably people that had been run over by trains just all over the rails. And a weeping started to come from my ear, crying, a deep low moan, just sobbing and sobbing, and I just, why? Why was that man crying? Why was he sobbing? Why was this happening? Why was he sobbing? Someone help him, why? And then as they wheeled me onto a carriage, as the train suddenly had appeared from nowhere, I saw him, and I realised he was a ghost. He just hadn't been able to move on because of what they'd done to him. He'd just been in the room I'd been in, it exploded. And he was sat with his head in his hands, rocking and weeping and sobbing as the parts of his own body dripped down around him. And I've never been so simultaneously terrified, disgusted, and filled with rage and hate as I was in that moment. How dare they do this? How dare they do this to me? How dare they do it to anyone? Then they pulled me out of the bed. And I realised that in the carriage next door, the party was continuing. Oh, they were having a great time. I could hear them. Oh, they were having a great time. And what they were going to do is they were going to party as long as I could live. That's what they were going to do. So what they were going to do, and what they did, was tie me to an upright on the floor, on my back, in the middle of this old decrepit carriage that stank of piss and stank of vomit and stank of just death and metal and just gross. A slap on the face, and off they went to leave me there. And I lay there, minute after minute, hour after hour, telling myself, do not go to sleep, do not go to sleep, do not go to sleep, do not sleep, do not sleep, whatever you do, don't go to sleep. There would be a click and a rumble as the door would open and in would come someone and they'd look directly over the top of me, staring into my eyes, in my mouth, poking at me. Ah, still alive, this one? Still alive? Yeah, I'm still alive. And I'm going to stay that way until someone finds you, until you know that you've been caught. And off they went to get more drunk. I could hear the laughter, hear how much fun they were having, the sordid little affairs they were having, sneaking off, doing things where I just couldn't see. But I knew, and I knew, No matter how many hours and hours and hours this went on for, I would never sleep, and my God, did they keep me there. Days, days they kept me locked up and tied up, staring down at me every few hours to check whether they'd won their little game. I hated them. And I wanted to get them so badly, but I couldn't move and I couldn't speak. But then I couldn't stay awake any longer. I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I couldn't fight them anymore. I couldn't put up with the sobbing. I couldn't put up with the poking and the prodding. Eventually, as they looked down at me with a needle in hand, I went into a sleep.